Duke Ellington is the greatest jazz composer of all time and one of the finest jazz musicians ever. Along with his arranger and right-hand man Billy Strayhorn, Ellington composed the hits Take the A-Train, Caravan, Satin Doll, In a Sentimental Moon, It Don't Mean a Thing If It Ain't Got That Swing, Mood Indigo, Solitude, Stormy Weather, Creole Love Call, and many other tunes. But today, beyond Wynton Marsalis, Duke almost seems forgotten. His music isn't referenced in pop culture. There are no tell-all biopics, no revivals of his music on Broadway, no Broadway shows turned into movies. But Duke's music is an essential American art form, and to me really represents the greatness of America. One of the great things Duke did was write specifically for his soloist, and his soloists are all profound in their own way. Today, Johnny Hodges is still pretty highly thought of because he made a lot of records after being with Duke, but the soloist in Duke's orchestras are phenomenal. If you listen to the work of Ray Nance, Lawrence Brown, Sonny Greer, Cat Anderson, Cootie Williams, Jimmy Blanton, who innovated the idea of bass solos and bass playing melody and not just rhythms. Harry Carney, Paul Gonsalves, the tenor player who helped revitalize Duke's career at the 1953 Newport Jazz Festival. Strayhorn and Ellington treated the jazz orchestra as an orchestra and created incredible sonorities, incredible harmonies, incredible beautiful richness. Can only be called sublime. It's the very finest to me of jazz. It swings, it's deep, it's fun, it's sorrowful, it's epic, it's intimate, and Duke did so many different things. There are the trio records he did with Sonny Greer and I think Sam Woodyard, such as Piano in the Foreground. There's all the records he did later in his career on Impulse with Coleman Hawkins and John Coltrane. There's Money Jungle with Charles Mingus and Max Roach, even though I personally feel it's kind of an uneven record. But every jazz collector should have a significant part dedicated to Duke Ellington, even if you only have a handful of his records, the best of which I'll mention to me at the end of this video. And all these records today are all taken from the Jazz Record Center, where we have about 4 rows of Duke Ellington records, and we sell very few of them. It's really sort of sad. But in all Duke's work, we hear the very meaning of swing, and he and Strayhorn's innovative use of orchestral colors. This is really sublime music on par with Debussy and Ravel, purely beautiful music that stands alone in jazz for its sheer power and beauty. Duke was born to musical parents in Washington, D.C. in 1899, took piano lessons as a child. His father was into the opera, apparently. By the early 20s, Duke was in Harlem, became part of the Harlem Renaissance. By 1927, he had his first group, which included the great drummer Sonny Greer, and they were broadcasting across the U.S. on the CBS radio network from the Cotton Club. He held court at the Cotton Club from 1927 to 1931, by which time he had his very first hit, Creole Love Call. And Duke toured extensively in Europe and was very popular in Europe, and obviously probably. Ellington's career breezed through the 1940s as his orchestra had a series of global hits, and they toured globally and were extremely popular and sold tons of records. But by the early 50s, the big bands were in decline, as were Duke's fortunes. The Newport Jazz Festival in 1953 changed all of that, when tenor saxophonist Paul Gonsalves played a 27-chorus solo on Diminuendo and Crescendo in Blue, which became an international event. Now that's a different era when a jazz solo can become an international event. The album of the same name became Duke's best-selling album of all time, Duke Ellington at Newport in 1953, even though a good portion of the record had been re-recorded for the release. Other great records throughout this period, in 1959, Anatomy of a Murder, a score for Otto Preminger's movie, The opening scenes, you can see Duke Ellington leading a combo in a small bar. That's a really wonderful record. Indigos is another essential Ellington record. Just the beautiful harmonies and sonorities and interplay, and you can hear the orchestra breathing. I mean, it's not dynamics as we think of quiet, soft, loud. It's infinitesimal levels of dynamics. It's like a single organism. It's so beautiful, and the compositions are so beautiful. Masterpieces, the first album the group recorded for Columbia. I quote jazz critic Gary Giddens, who called the album one of the first genuinely innovative 12-inch EPs. He noted that Ellington eschewed the suite format in favor of continuous long-form works that reflected a liberation made possible by the LP. The vivid, languorous 15-minute mood Indigo exemplifies Ellington's newfound freedom. And with this newfound freedom and global popularity, he turned his work towards much broader compositional styles, which you can hear on the Far East Suite, the Euro, Afro-Eurasian Eclipse, I believe it's called, the New Orleans Suite. And he was, at the end of his life, which I can remember from being a little kid, he was just, music royalty in the U.S. And, won the Pulitzer Prize, touted at the White House, just one of the great innovators in American arts. And every jazz collector should have a good portion of their collection dedicated to the essential recordings of Duke Ellington, some of which you see today in this video.